What I like to do is just go through something that we've done and developed and talk about effective training for in-home customer service representatives and people who have to help out all of us in our business. Before I do that, I just want you to think a little bit as I'm presenting about pain points you've either had in your business or pain points that you would have when somebody came to your service at your house that you just sat there and went, wow, that's just not what I was expecting. And why can't I get these guys to understand that this was got to be a different way to do this? So as we get started on that, I'll go through all that. As Dale mentioned, I started the Trusted Toolbox 13 years ago, and I started with just two people. I left corporate America and put myself in one van and hired another guy and put him in that van and started to grow. I put my shingle out there and started to tell people about the service. And as we grew, especially in home services, the only way for us to really effectively grow is to scale. And so I've scaled, and here we are 13 years later. I have 15 technicians who work for me, a full complement here in the office, answering phone calls and kind of organizing all the work we do. So we have been able to scale effectively over these 13 years, but it really comes down to scaling with people. I've also been a little bit busier on some other fronts the last year. I went ahead and published a book about the work I've done, taking my leap from the corporate zoo and getting out into this entrepreneurial wild world of small business ownership. But it talks more, and it's really more about my experience and how I built this home service business and was able to scale it to the size we are today. I've actually started a podcast called the Small Business Safari. I've gotten a lot of great feedback on that. It's, as they say, gritty and irreverent advice, more on the practical side as opposed to the theoretical side. So that's out there as well. I'd welcome you to all go take a look at that one. About 3 years ago, I realized that our business was going in the right direction, but it wasn't doing everything I was hoping it would do in terms of my expectations. I really felt like I was in the handyman business, but I realized 3 years ago, really, I was in the training business. I really was not in the handyman or remodeling business anymore. I really had to be more effective at training so that I could get my team and my company to perform the way I would expect them to train. So as a business owner, what am I looking for? I'm always looking for profit. I'm looking for that money. That's what I need. That's what I want. I want to have employees that stay with me because I know high-performing employees are going to be more beneficial to my company, are going to be less headaches for me, and it's going to make it a better customer experience to give us that 5-star, wow, raving fan customer experience. So as we keep going, we think about this, and I would tell you one of my favorite pet peeve lines is when I get that call, say, can I please talk to the owner? And they usually start with, he was a nice guy, but he didn't really finish the work. He didn't clean up after himself. I think he's kind of overcharged me. And frankly, Chris, I remember when you started your business, he just wasn't like you. So what's going on? Why is that happening? So the nice guy but is tough because you have a team that you need to scale and get out there. And this is a picture of my team when we started to be intentional on training. You can see that you know and you realize now in the home service space, they are the face of your company. They are the ones that the customers will review. They are the ones that we're going to take care of our customers for us. So as they take care of our customers, they really are what we like to call the face of our company. So what do I want to have these guys do? Well, if they're the face of my company, I want them to be like me, because I know that I'll take care of the customer. So I got a whole lot of me's running around. But what I really realized is that they're not me. They're better than me. They have the skills and abilities to help people in their homes. They could be electricians or plumbers or carpenters or drywall specialists or painters. And all of us have skilled artisans who work for us. And these artisans really feel themselves as artists. They view themselves as people just like sculptors and pianists and portrait painters. If you were to really ask them what they really thought about themselves, the high-performing individuals in all home services will tell you, I think I'm an artist. I think I'm a skilled trade. I think I have something that a lot of people don't have, and I can offer them, the customers, what I expect. But they also have a lone wolf mentality. So the technicians that we're talking about are lone wolves. They're used to foraging for themselves. They're used to providing for themselves. They're used to solving their own problems. So with that lone wolf mentality, and you bring them in for training, it is a critical piece to make sure that you're getting them not only into your culture, but allowing them to show off that when they join your wolf pack, they can actually do better for themselves. They can actually provide for their families better than they did before. And sometimes their life will actually be easier when you work together in a wolf pack. And they really do want to be part of something because that's a human condition. We all want to be part of something and we want to feel part of something. So we want to make sure that they feel part of our company so that when they're out there doing what they do, that they feel not only does their company have their back, but they get to show off their artistry. We also have one big variable that home services that a lot of people have, but we have it in spades. And that's those crazy customers we like to call Harry Heater, Irene I don't know, Scott Skeptical, and my favorite, Felicia Fingers, the one who tells you you're number one. We all have these people, and when we have them and it happens, what do you do in your companies? We try to make light of them a little bit because it takes the pressure off us and it gets us back into problem-solving mode. But really, without these customers, we can't do what we need to do. So what do we need to do? We need to turn them into raving fans. We want to turn these customers and their customer experience into raving fans so that they'll turn around and refer us to their friends and their family, because we all know that repeat business is the best business that we all can get in our companies. So as these raving fans go around, we have a few other things that we have to worry about. Here's what's going on in these customers' heads that our technicians need to know. This comes from a couple studies I've been part of. Why don't customers let people come into their homes? Why do people just live with something? Because they're hesitant and they're anxious. And they're hesitant and they're anxious. They think, number one, you're going to come in and make the house even more of a mess than it is today. They think you're going to come in and make a bigger mistake. I had a small leak before, and now I have a big leak. And I'm afraid you're going to take a deposit and you're not going to come back and take care of my business. You're going to take my money and run. So studies show that that's what people are thinking before they call a customer service provider or somebody to come into their home. But what do our employees want? Because we need to line those guys up and make sure that our technicians can go out and do it. Well, they're pretty easy. They're like what I like to call what you see is what you get, WYSIWYG. They need to make money. They want to demonstrate their artistry each and every day. And at the end of the day, they want to have an easy transaction where somebody said, yes, I liked what you did, and thank you for doing that work. So when you're lining up this anxiety with the technician experience, you're also watching out for he was a nice guy, but you'll notice that in that nice guy, but stuff that I talked about earlier, quality is sometimes the lowest part of the real problem. It's actually not even the root cause of the problem that they're calling. When the customer calls and says, I'd like to talk to the owner or the service manager, they will probably lead with quality because they know that that's what we're thinking, but rarely is that the true source of the complaint. The true source of the complaint could be something as simple as he just didn't smile enough, or he smelled a little bit, or he showed up late and he stayed late. It was a small thing that we said, well, at least the quality was good. They'll come back, and what will happen is they'll tell you it's ruined their entire experience. And the customer will call, and they'll take that small issue and make it a really big one and put the magnifying glass on it. So as we're doing that and we get these complaints, we sit there and go, wait a minute, I got to react to these people. I'm in a reactive training situation. And all these people want us to do is turn their service into Plumber Crack Bob and turn it into a 5-star service quality, which is what they were expecting. So they want that customer service to happen. They want to be able to say how great you are, but you are in essence now reacting to it. So as an owner, we want to make money and get everybody lined up. We're excited about that. As a technician, they just say, hey, let me go do my job. I'm an artist. Let me go do my thing. As a customer, I'm anxious. I'm hesitant. I'm worried you're going to come and mess my house up. And what we're all trying to do is pull that slot machine and get those slot machines all lined up so that everybody's smiling at the end. So with the setup of the technician and the customer, it's now time to start talking about why do people choose us and why will our training be more effective? So customers choose us because we have an established reputation. They choose us because we'll guarantee that we will come back and make it right if we don't do it right the first time, but we'll guarantee the work that we're doing. And we'll actually communicate with you. And that's an amazing part. All you need to do is communicate with somebody and customers will choose us more. So what makes our customers more comfortable with the technicians that we send out, who are the face of our company, who are our artists and our lone wolves, is that they know, and we've seen this, that they get a call 30 minutes ahead of the intended appointment time. They are now prepared and ready for them to come into the house. So they're excited about that. But if you call just 30 minutes ahead, life is a lot better for the technician and he gets an easy transaction. If the technician shows up and demonstrates their knowledge and their skill and gives them a plan of what they're going to do, we found that the customer is actually more accepting of things or changes that may happen during the transaction. And lastly, they need to be neat and professional. Now, in construction, we do make messes. If you've ever seen a bathroom get remodeled, we all know that drywall dust goes everywhere. If you've ever been involved in having your windows changed out, you know that trim has to get removed from windows. You know that sometimes paint has to be touched up, and you know that there has to be drop cloths around. But at the end of the day, as long as we're neat and professional, they'll feel more comfortable with the transaction. Now, in home services, we all have the same thing. We all have to plan for a job. We all have to start the job. We got to perform the job, and then we have to complete the job. So we all have 4 phases. And now I'm going to start talking a little bit more about the training and starting getting into what makes an effective training to our technicians that will help satisfy our customers' anxieties. So in the planning and preparing and the starting and the working, Aristotle said it best. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, it is a habit. And if you think about that, we can't just fall out of bed and be an amazing carpenter. We can't just fall out of bed and be a plumber who's seen many things. It is a habit that gets performed, and it's a habit that gets developed. It gets developed either through your training or through their experiences. And so that's going to happen. And those habits really will be reinforced in training. Now, what do we know about our guys? We know our technicians are lone wolves and artists. I've established that. We also know that they're not the kind of person who's going to be on this conference call. They're not this kind of person who's going to attend a webinar. They're not going to sit there for an hour and listen to somebody drone on about customer service. They're not going to sit there and listen to somebody talk about 2 + 2 is 4. They left high school and got out to use their hands because that's what we do as artists. What we have figured out is that 3 components of training breaks up the training period that we have to make it more effective. So let's start into that a little bit more. First, we always train around our company culture because remember, they want to be part of something bigger than them. Everybody wants to feel part of something. But we'll train around that customer experience because we know that if they understand and buy into our customer experience training, they get to make more money, they get to demonstrate their skills, and they get to have an easier transaction. We also know that we've got to work on our processes because if we have good processes in place, we have a repeatable transaction, customers know what to expect from us, we can line our technicians up for success, and they can go out and be the face of our company because we have them through the right operational processes. So we'll reinforce some of that. But lastly, and most importantly, if you don't give them back something in their life that makes their job easier, the first 2 things will have been fallen on deaf ears. We know that if we give them something back, either a new tool that's come out or a new technique that's available to us or even a new product that has come out, that they walk away going, as an artist, I now can do my job even better. I'll listen to those first 2 things. So let's dive in a little bit more on how do we get through customer experience and customer culture. We're trying to let them know who we are, and we talk about the why. Simon Sinek has made this a very popular topic. What is our why? Well, at the end of the day, our technicians sitting in there, their why has already been established. Their why is to make money and provide for their families, to demonstrate their skills and feel satisfied about what they're doing, and have an easy day so they can go home and do the other things they want to do. But they want to hear our why because when they feel like they're part of something bigger, which we do at the Trusted Toolbox, we talk about our mission plaque. So we'll train around one of our 5 skills or our 5 key tenets. We'll talk about being set up for success. And we'll talk about that in usually the first part of the meeting. Now moving on to operational processes. How are we going to help you make your job and your life easier? Well, we pay people for time off. We call that vacation or holiday pay. So how do you request time off? And we also have checklists here at the company that we've developed, and we reinforce those checklists because we know that those checklists are going to help them do their job better. They're not going to make them a better handyman or make them a better painter or a better carpenter or a better plumber or an electrician, but it does help reset them when things go wrong. Now, we happen to use tablets here at the Trusted Toolbox, so we'll train around the technology of that. And of course, one of the key things we do is we always get into safety to making sure things are right. So we'll give them those operational processes. And if you've ever had to go through an employee handbook in corporate America, which I did, it is probably the most boring 2 hours of your life. So we try to make it a little bit more engaging and keep it short and sweet so they know what to do. I mentioned before, if without that technical piece, you can't get anywhere. So we'll talk about different techniques and different skills or different tools. And that is the part that cements the other three things. And you can see these are some examples of the training we've done here. But even in your own industries, this is where you would bring in some of your technical or your industry partners. Because if you make my job easier, I'm going to listen. So at the end of the day, what we're doing in that training session is we're aligning my want as a owner, and I'm trying to line it up with their needs as technicians. And so those are the three components. So you're probably listening to this, and I'm starting to get into the meat of this thing, and you're like, yeah, Chris, I hear you, but, training, I got it. I want to make more money. I actually have a good online reputation at Google, and, my employees are kind of sticking. I thought, I'm not really sure I need to do it. But if you really want to pull that slot machine and make it happen, the question is, what are you asking yourself? Well, my techs are going to hate this. You don't know my guys, Chris, but, these guys will just never buy into this stuff. Now, this is, just out, don't even have it. You know what? I'm actually pretty good. I mean, I got 4.9 rated, or I'm really well done, and I got customers that keep coming back to everything. And at the end of the day, man, it's just I don't have the time. And as an owner or a service manager, committing to training is tough. And I said all those things that you just see up there. But because either way, if you decide to build the habit or not and train for the habit or not, the habit will be developed. And if it's not trained in, it could become a bad habit. This is a great line. Change will happen no matter what. But if you do something, it will be the change you want. Committing to training is an important part. And before I go into too much more about the training and the technical stuff, let me tell you what it did for me at the Trusted Toolbox. I thought I was pretty good. I had 4.1 rated in Google. I'm a handyman business. It is hard to be any higher. I was like, well, I could be better. Well, I committed to training. We started doing it consistently, and the stuff I'm about to show you will show you how great we got. We went from 4.1, we're actually 4.7 rated right now, but 4.6 on Google. I got almost 300 more reviews because of that. When I first started, I was told that handymen stick with you for about 7 months, and that's about what I was seeing. That was a national average. After this training has been implemented, and we've continued with it now for the last 3.5 years, we now have 24 months. That's our average retention rate. I had guys who used to say, blah, 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 Chris, there he goes again, call the customer. And then when we started implementing the training, and talking their language, we started actually getting guys who were pretty engaged in the training and actually want to stick around. All right, let's talk metrics. By putting this training in, my technicians and my artists aren't really salesmen, but they were able to add on $300,000 in labor in all the transactions we had in 2020, which added 9% to the top. That was just by them following the training process that we have and what we've done in terms of the three components. And I said, well, man, I don't have the time to do this, and I'm not pulling the guys out of the field. I don't want to do that. I got to get them out there earning and making it happen. Well, my tech labor revenue and my utilization actually went up to 94%. So by committing to training and believing it, I said, I think I'm in the training business, and things are really starting to happen. I could see the shift in the culture of my company. I could see the shift in the mentality of the guys I had. So now my question to you is, how come you don't have training? And if you do, is it as good as it needs to be? And why is it so important? Well, this is why it's so important. Just start doing it, because as General George Patton said, a good plan violently executed is better than a perfect plan that gets executed next week. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to since we've started the Home Service Institute who said, yeah, I'll get to it, but we're too busy right now. Yeah, I'll get to it, but I'm coming into my slow season. Yeah, I'll get to it, but, and too many buts. Get it in place, and I promise you things will happen, because you need to make the commitment not only to yourself, but to your company, and you're going to find your employees are making things happen. So I'm off my soapbox a little bit. Let me tell you now some more of the tactical stuff. Here's how I think a great training environment happens. You set it at an hour. Don't go over an hour. In-home services, I like to do it on Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, because we all know on Mondays stink. Mondays stink in home services because customers are either calling us and trying to figure things out, or we have technicians that maybe aren't working like we thought. Mondays are a reactionary day. And if I did it on Friday, I knew they'd forget about it on the next Monday. We found that at least doing it twice a month or every other week is good. Weekly may be a little bit too much for our lone wolves. They would feel like they're being oppressed a little bit too much because they need to go out there and create. But doing it monthly, you're missing the boat and the opportunity to reinforce not only your culture, your process, but giving them back their technical abilities to help them do their job better. One of the things we like to do is play some music or cool videos of work we did just to get the vibe going and get that going, because it's usually early in the morning, 7:30 start, and then you got to get that going. So we know that by producing that environment, it really helps out. We know that we need to focus on those three things that I talked about, and I'll talk about those more in a minute. A little bit more of the customer experience, the operational process, and the technical abilities. We also want to celebrate successes. We celebrate anniversaries at the company. We celebrate birthdays. We also run periodic contests to have a little competitive rivalry, and it's always been good, and they always look forward to it. Now, if you haven't been to the Trusted Toolbox, and many of you haven't, this is what we have today for our training room. We have who we are and what we do. You can see the colors are vibrant. They're also part of our culture. You'll see all of our teammates are up there on the wall with their faces. You're also going to see where we've gotten great reviews. We put those up as well. And this multi-purpose room has a big TV in the front so we can demonstrate things, but we can also move the tables around if we want to do a hands-on training session. I didn't start like that. I started in a little crappy little conference room that I was subleasing from a guy, and I got an easel and I stuck it up there and I started doing this: culture, operations, and technical. I spent a little bit of money and I paid $100 for the Walmart stand that you're looking at here, and I paid $200 for that TV, and I said, okay, I'm going to upgrade now, and I used to plug my laptop into this thing. So I didn't start like that, but you can get like that. So here at the Home Service Institute, which we've started, I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about how we could help and how it could work into your training plan, and we could help you do that. As I mentioned before, we all plan, start, do, and then complete a job. In all of those, we all have the same activities we have to do. So what we found is that our technicians like to listen to a story that tickles their brain and uses their mind as artists to allow them to pay attention. So the first thing we do is we tell them a story. We're playing to our audience, and we all have the same kind of people. So we tell them a story, we get them engaged, we get them listening, you see the engagement happen, and then you hit them with the point that you want to make that's going to help you with your customer experience. So right now I'm talking about the first component, the company culture and customer experience. And you're like, yeah, I hear you, Chris. You guys have put this in place with your company. How would I do that with my company? Well, we've developed these modules at the Home Service Institute where you can take these stories, play them in front of on a TV, and then you have comments so your manager or your owner will know what to say after to make sure that the point gets driven home. So let's talk about a couple of these things and why they're so cool, because I really love them. Why do I have to call the customer? Blah, blah, blah. Chris says call the customer 30 minutes ahead of the intended appointment time. He says from some study it makes sense. And they wouldn't do it, and they wouldn't do it. So finally, we put together a story. And this story is about a jet pilot landing on an aircraft carrier in the middle of the ocean. And in this story, we talk about how cool that is. And if you've ever seen it, it is cool, right? We can all admit that that's really cool. And every one of our technicians in our office and in our room that day thinks they're that jet pilot. And that's what we all want as owners. Because if they're going to be the face of the company, and they're going to go out there and take care of customers, they need to land that jet. But what we talk about in this story is if you know how a jet does get landed on an aircraft carrier, up until the time where the pilot calls the ball, the support teams and everybody else are out there making sure that the preparations were set. So we tell the story of this, and then when it's done, we talk about you call the ball as a technician. You got this. You call the customer. You let your scheduler know you got this job. And now from now on, you accept responsibility for that customer. After we played this the first time, guess who was calling their customer 30 minutes ahead of their intended appointment time? My guys were. I was impressed that they actually were walking out talking about how cool it was to see that jet land. And what we did is we talked about the learning objectives. So I had that sheet of paper where I sat in the back of the room. I didn't do the presentation. We actually did it as a video. And I got up after and I said, guys, now you know what I mean by calling the ball? And now you know what I mean about calling that customer? They did it. So it was pretty cool watching that happen. Here's another example. Another pain point that we had. Well, I don't really understand why I can't just get there and go to work. So my guy, Tommy Tech, gets there and just tries to go to work or maybe takes a run to the big box store and gets some materials, but doesn't give the customer the plan. So I kept saying, guys, you got to give them a plan. You got to let them know what you're doing. Falling on deaf ears again, right? So now we tell a story about Amelia Earhart. If you don't know who this lady is, she had a plan, and she communicated her plan. She even got the President of the United States to help her with the plan. And when you hear that story, you can see it, and you can see a lot of our guys are male. I've had a few females in our organization over the years, but you can see that, hey, if that lady can do what she did, I think I can give a plan to my customer. I get it. I had another pain point. I walk up to the house and I judged. The house probably wasn't as nice as some of the ones we worked in. Maybe you have to give it 110% today, Chris. I think I'm just going to do a halfway job. So we talk about the portraits of two women. And in this story, we talk about these are really just two paintings. They are just two portraits of two women. Now, it's interesting, and I would tell you, I've done this presentation a number of times over the summer. And I can promise you that when I had people in the office doing this, 50% of you will pick the Mona Lisa, and 50% of you will pick the Dora Maar to put in your own home. And they are still just two portraits of women. So quality is in the eye of the beholder. We tell that story, and then we talk about not letting up your guard and talking about how you need to understand the quality level of what you're doing as an artist. It really resonated with the guys and really made a lot of sense. The last thing, I'm done. If you've ever been in home services and if you've ever had to put a door in and it didn't go well that day, or if you've ever had to paint a wall and it bubbled on you, or you try to fix that leak under the sink as a DIY homeowner and it just won't stop, when you're done, the first thing you're thinking about doing is not thanking the customer. You're like, thank God this thing's over with. I can't believe it's done. I just want to get out of there. And when they're thinking that and they try to slink away and say, oh my God, that was one of the toughest days I've had, forget about it. We tell the story about a maid service in Seattle. And what the maid service in Seattle did is the lady who ran the maid company would come in and clean houses. And when she came in to clean the house 2 hours before she'd finish, she would cook chocolate chip cookies in the oven of the customer's house. So when the customer came home, they would smell chocolate chip cookies, get to eat chocolate chip cookies, and loved how clean their house was. She started getting the yeah, but calls because they said, well, they just don't act like you, Maria. And she found out that her other teams weren't cooking the cookies because they were trying to hurry up and get out of there. And so by making sure that they just plopped a few cookies in the oven, her customer experience and her customer satisfaction and her loyalty all went up. So with this story, you can see where the guys start to make sense. And then what we tell them is, yeah, Chris, I hear you, but man, I got to get going. I want to get home. And I say, yeah, but if you would just do this, our why is to have a returning customer. My want as an owner is to make more money and be profitable. But what you get out of this is you might get a good review, a pat on the back, and who knows, they might even reach in their wallet, grab their purse, and give you a tip. That's why you do this. So you leave them with that chocolate chip cookie experience. So I just took you through the 4 things that would happen, and we all have, and I took you through the 4 modules that we developed here to help you get kickstarted in training. I talked about the 4 pain points that we've had here at the Trusted Toolbox that we have addressed. But I just don't have those 4. We've actually developed 20. And of these 20, there are different stories with different talking points that all help reinforce the company culture and the customer experience that we want all of our guys to have. And when they have that, we know that we'll get lined up really well. So I told you I would take you through some training. I've taken you through a little bit of this. Hopefully this has helped a little bit. I said I wanted to hear a little bit more about some other pain points. And one of the things we talk about, one of our modules is when you get to the customer's house, tell them what you're going to do it, and tell them what you did and show them what you did. So I've done that. I want to stop now and get some more dialogue going. We're a pretty small group. Love to hear what everybody else has to say and hear any questions or comments you guys have. So let's open it up. And what are your pain points?